It's going to go down.
I'd like to thank Knuckle Down for that awesome opening theme music, and if you enjoyed that, head over to their Facebook page and like it. They're also on SoundCloud, so make sure to check that out. They're always posting cool new tracks all the time. And as a matter of fact, their next performance is February 11th at Bordner's in Los Angeles. Tickets are still available, but they're going quickly. They're $12 at the door. Now on to today's topic. Let me remind everybody, I am David Caduto.
I am Aaron Lanuza.
And today we have a special guest, and we'll be getting to him in just a moment. This week, I want to thank everybody for listening to our inaugural podcast last week. And our guest this week is Skylar Barty,
Hello.
who is an independent producer and big Marvel Comics fan. And we're going to have him back in a couple weeks to talk about Deadpool. But today, our subject is going to be all about reboots, remakes, and sequels, and how they've changed Hollywood. Are they good or bad for Hollywood? And we're going to talk about our favorites. And so let's get started. So, Skylar, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been a staff writer. I was a staff writer at the radio station KHTS here in Santa Clarita for a couple months. I'm now an independent writer. I do my own stuff. I've been a part of helping places in the past. I was a kind of an on-hands guy during the Game Breaker Wowhead parties. I'd help with a lot of the wiring and stuff like that. So I've been around podcasts. I've been a part of a couple podcasts as well. So I've kind of been around the scene. I'm very big nerd. Comics, movies, video games, everything that kind of deals with like the nerd culture is kind of just my area of expertise. Like you said, I'm super excited for Deadpool. It's the first that's going to get us kick-started off on this super big comic book movie year. So I'm excited, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much. So, okay. So, as I said, our subject is reboots, remakes, and sequels. So, let me start with you, Aaron.
Yes.
Well, first of all, before we get into this, let's talk about what exactly a reboot and a remake is.
Okay.
So
can I like explain just one of them?
Go right ahead.
Because I did a lot of research on what the difference was and what reboots are and what the remakes would be different.
Okay.
What the difference would be. I had some trouble because it looks like a lot of people have a problem making this a distinguishing factor sometimes.
Okay. So what did you find out that was interesting?
Well, I found out that a reboot is like an alteration to the original, changing the format of basically the universe that storyline takes place. So you'll have the same characters, but you're changing the way that story is being told, and the storyline basically is changed completely.
Outstanding.
Is that right?
I mean, so the main difference between like what a reboot and a remake are, so a reboot is anything that revitalizes a franchise, but doesn't have to deal with anything from the original.
Gotcha.
So you don't need to know the original. It's not like a sequel that's continuing the universe. They can, but usually they want to start something new. So a good example of this would be in video game terms, it would be the Tomb Raider series. They had a reboot. Video games do this a lot more than movies do, at least recently. We kind of got a reboot in
over and over again.
Jurassic World and Mad Max last year. There's still kind of sequels in the world, but they're a new breath of fresh air to these franchises. A remake, on the other hand, is the exact same movie, like same plot and everything. It's just an updated version. So
revitalizing the cast and characters, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you have mentioned to me earlier off the podcast, Magnificent Seven is coming out. It's a remake of a 1960s movie, which is a old Western version of Seven Samurai. So it's a remake of a remake, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get started. Aaron, so we're going to talk about reboots first.
Okay.
So give me a reboot that you've like or you've seen or frankly horrible.
All right, so let's see. Well, I guess one that I've seen recently, but not so recent, was a reboot of Godzilla.
Okay.
With Bryan Cranston as the main character. I thought that movie was incredible, and compared to its franchise of Godzilla in the past, I think that they finally were able to make this character or make Godzilla seem pretty damn scary. Although, I mean, I would have to say that they didn't have too much airtime for Godzilla at all, really.
I think,
Well-
and I think that was actually not scripted.
No,
but-
it was so in the original Godzilla. So going way back to the '60s, when it was a giant puppet,
Right.
they actually didn't show a lot of Godzilla in the original, and actually a lot of the Japanese Godzilla movies were very much character driven. So they're more about the humans that interact with Godzilla
So the
rather
story-
than Godzilla. Yeah,
So the story then.
yeah, it's more or less how they did this. And what was cool, like you said, this one was really good. So it was cooler about this reboot, comparatively to the 1999-2000 Godzilla,
Mhm.
was that it wasn't about making Godzilla a bad guy. Because Godzilla's kind of this anti-hero. He's someone that just based on his side destroys a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately is there to destroy whatever what other monster is there in the story.
So basically, he's there to be the mediator.
Yeah.
Of the world. He's kind of like he really is like the superhero of the story.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't start off that way. He actually started off a bad guy in the originals. And then as people started liking Godzilla and more of the kaiju universe that the Japanese created,
Mhm.
he ended up being like the centerpiece, the hero of all kaiju. And you ended up having like Mothra come in there and a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of throwbacks in there. What was really cool about the reboot, they really idolized the originals.
They did, yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I was just looking. They're actually making a sequel to Godzilla.
Yes, they are making a
And
sequel.
so that right now is in the developmental stages, and so this is going to be set to be released in a couple of years. So that's
I think it's like 2017, 2018 is
so
when
that's
it's set to be
gonna
released.
Fascinating to see.
For those who are fans of Godzilla, if I remember correctly, there was an IGN article right around the time that they announced the sequel that it's going to be Gaidan, who's going to be the... so Gaidan's kind of like this turtle thing. It's a cool creature. Can't wait to see how they do an actual like historically made Godzilla kaiju as a villain. So it'll be interesting to see.
A giant turtle, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Turtle-like creature.
Gotcha.
yeah. Speaking, I know this is kind of off topic, but speaking of sequels, they're actually coming out with another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sequel.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about
sequels.
that later.
Yeah.
So, Skylar, let's have one of your.
So for
picks.
reboots, kind of a reboot, but that was also kind of a sequel. And I want to talk about like the negatives of reboots.
Absolutely.
Because Godzilla is a very good pick of what did good, But looking at Terminator Genesis, because they wanted to revitalize this franchise, they wanted to start adding a new story, but they did it in a way that was like trying to be part of the original universe. So they are kind of making it this sequel thing while also trying to reboot it, and they just started doing crappy writing. And that entire movie. So, by the way, for anyone listening, if you have not seen this movie, don't spend the money for it. It's absolutely terrible. That is my own personal review of it. The acting, like, there's a lot of great acting in it.
Watch the trailer if you have to.
If you watch the trailer, if you have to really understand. But there's just so much logic breaks in writing to where there's even a joke where there's a major plot hole that talks about something that happened in the movie that's kind of unexplained. And they kind of throw this, well, you can't really explain that, can you? And it's like, they mention it. They break the fourth wall and mention it. It's just so crappy. And it's like, and they never mention it again. They never come back and explain it. It was like this glaring plot hole. But when you do a reboot, and especially as a series as beloved as Terminator 2 being one of the greatest films of all times, James Cameron really sold that universe. It's really disappointing to see what this movie came to, because a lot of the time in Hollywood nowadays, as we'll get to sequels and remakes, is that they're creating unbelievable characters now. And they're creating characters that have no fear and absolutely no humanity to them. They're these larger than life,
for lack of a better word.
I wouldn't say morality, because they have morality. It's more of they are so larger than life. Like the characters have no fear. They're like these action heroes, and they act that way. But if you remember the original Terminator, I can't remember the character's name. He's in Genesis, but the main hero of Terminator, he's scared half the movie. He's scared of the Terminator.
Yes.
It's a terrifying thing, and half the time he's running away from it until the final act of the movie. Whereas in Genesis, he's kind of just like, I'm gung-ho. Like, let's go for it.
Directly in the gun of everything. And then they just make everybody just, like, that's just part of their world, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, and, like, there's no believability to it anymore.
Yeah.
And And I think that's just a problem with a lot of these reboots. There's some that are great, like Godzilla, like a couple other examples that you might get to. But in everything that has built up to be bad, Terminator Genisys is like the perfect example of what not to do to reboot a series.
Well, I think personally, and when you were talking about T2, you're right. I think personally, everything... I haven't seen Terminator 3. I never saw Terminator Salvation. And I personally have not seen Terminator Genisys because, to me, the fact is that after T2, nothing else could be better than what James Cameron put on screen. I
agree, yes.
And so I think for that, Arnold's now coming back to the movies, and he's made a couple of duds, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. And I honestly don't think that it's 100% his fault either. I think a lot of
I think a lot of it's the story writing. And,
yeah.
It's a matter of fact, speaking of, when I saw the original trailer and I had to go and look at the credits, I couldn't believe that Emilia Clarke, and if you don't know who she is, she's on Game of Thrones, as the queen. I was floored because I went, oh my goodness, because I'm only seeing her as a blonde, and
her performance is
completely
also an American accent rather than standard British.
For me, personally, my reboot, and I actually have two, but I'm going to have to pick one of them, is The Godfather. And this is, and you could say, well, this is more of a remake. And that argument could be made. But when I saw that they were going to redo this, I was mortified because it is number 3 or 4 on the AFI's top 100 list. And for me personally, I don't think anything on that top 100 list should be completely untouchable and, never be remade again because I don't think they could ever do as good a job. That being said, now Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be taking the lead role, and I will be very, very curious to see how they will do with that. So that's going to be fascinating. That comes out, I think, 2018. But still,
wow. That was just announced recently too. Yeah. And it's kind of sad because we had Abe Vigoda die.
Yes.
And it's like, so we kind of got the news that they're doing a new Godfather, and then we got the news that Abe died, and it kind of just like is surrounding this.
Isn't that a little too early? I feel like it's way too early to be able to bring in a new Godfather.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's. I don't think it's at all too early. And my main issue with this, and this is what I'm scared for with it, is the Godfather. At least Godfather Part 2. Yes. Is the quintessential mob film. Mm-hmm. There has never been a mob film that is better, and it's 3 hours of dialogue. It's 3 hours of really good dialogue, though. And it's so tense, and it's so romanticized in this, but it's so believable, too. Every part of The Godfather is just so well orchestrated, from script writing to acting to every part of it. It's really hard to follow that, where it's almost better to just go back and do what they did with the Criterion Collection, which is HDify them. Yeah. Don't add anything, just put them into higher resolution and then re-release that in theaters. Yeah. I would much rather prefer that than a re-release. Though excited to see Leonardo DiCaprio take something. He's a great actor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I could see him doing a good performance in that.
It's something,
if you haven't seen The Departed. If you haven't seen The Departed,
Yeah, exactly. Well, The Departed, The Aviator, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
The fact is that he's now, it's going, and you're right, Skylar, as far as the story, and to me, the only other epic that I could really compare it to, and I know was really Gone with the Wind, as far as epics are concerned. We're talking about a film here that, as you said, it's 3 hours.
I can think Citizen Kane I'd also throw into that as well. Those grand films.
And it's very, very difficult to get that scope and that scale again. And, you had, as you pointed out, had Michael, and you had the Godfather himself, and you had all of these different characters. And how are they going to be able to do this? And you have to wonder, are they going to be able to, are we going to see more sequels from this too?
Another thing that we have to remember is that part of the reason why The Godfather was as good as it was like if you look at the actors, like you had Marlon Brando, you had all the like that era of actor, the Rat Pack type people that so fit in with their general demeanor outside of it that it wasn't when you saw them on screen portraying these characters, it was so believable because of the lives that they lived outside, that it was switching over to see them as mobsters was just like, oh yeah, that just makes sense.
And they brought them, they showed their whole character, like going from origin to what they became.
So I haven't seen this. I haven't looked at it yet. I'm waiting till we get into more pre-production where we have like they get into the scripts, but I need to see the script writers and and all that stuff. And I really hope that anyone from The Sopranos is working on it.
Yes.
Because TV, there's the great TV, West Wing, Seinfeld, all this stuff. Watch The Sopranos.
Yes.
And if you want a good
shows.
Yeah, like if you're gonna do The Godfather, bring in those people.
Because they have the experience of writing for mobsters and they know how to do it.
They just get the tone right, and I think that's what matters more than anything is getting the tone of The Godfather.
They probably have the most momentum also.
Yes, I would agree with that as well.
I think, and when you look at The Godfather as just a film, you look at the number of actors and actresses that came out of this one movie. We're talking about, and just the whole thing, just the whole set of movies itself. We're talking about Al Pacino. We're talking about Robert De Niro. We're talking about Marlon Brando. We're talking about Diane Keaton. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, I know I'm excluding a few, forgive me, but just the plethora of actors and actresses that have gone on and just, they really are. And, De Niro, we were talking about this last week. De Niro's, made over 100 films. He's working 45 years later, and he's still getting nominated for Oscars. Al Pacino, he's won 2 Oscars. So, Diane Keaton, all these great actors and actresses, it's one of those films you're never going to see again as far as
the level of power that
exactly. Yeah. And so
remakes.
As we
transition, because we can talk about Godfather.
Yeah, all day.
I love that movie.
It's one of those movies.
So,
okay, up to you, Skylar. What was the one remake that you loved or you really hated, you couldn't stand?
I'm actually going to be talking about the one we mentioned earlier, and I think he brought it up, and which was The Magnificent Seven. I don't know if you chose that.
No, don't worry. Go ahead.
So Magnificent Seven it's a story of more or less 7. I would call them desperados. But what's interesting to me about this remake is that it's a movie that was very well received in America when it first came out in the 1960s, during the height of the cowboy era, and we're kind of past the height of the cowboy era, and to me, the reason why The Magnificent Seven did so well back then was half the height of of that era, but also because of the story that it's based on being the Seven Samurai. One of the greatest films ever written. If you've never seen it, the Criterion Collection, I believe, is still on YouTube. It's part of that. It's an intense movie. You have to sit through subtitles. I apologize. But it's one of the remakes that's kind of edging me out a little bit. It comes out later this year. And we don't even have a trailer for it yet. I knew there wasn't a trailer for it, and it's I don't know, it's kind of hush-lipped. So yeah, it's a good one to see though.
I am just looking at the cast here.
Mm-hmm. The cast is going to be good.
Big cast here. We have
Chris Pratt. Chris
Pratt. Chris Guardians
Pratt.
of the Galaxy, Jurassic World. Then we have Denzel Washington, who just got a huge Lifetime Achievement.
Matt Bomer is an incredible actor. If you haven't seen White Collar, there's a bunch.
You've got Ethan Hawke.
So I don't think that the amount of power in this is incredible. So I don't think the acting is going to be the problem. And it goes back to what I was saying about Terminator Genesis. I have a very questionable time with writing right now. Yeah. We're in a very weird era of writing where some of our best movies are poorly written, or at least blockbuster-wise,
yes.
You have to get into the November, December months in order to get the pristine written movies. And then the rest of the year we get,
So you're saying that in the beginning of the year, they're not planning on giving us anything that's going to be fairly set well with scripts. We're not going to have anything good.
Well, I think it's a combination of a couple things. Number one, you're both right. Okay, as far as when it comes to January, February, and March, studios are really reluctant to do that and release their movies because the holidays have just passed, and they're going to say, well, we don't know if this is really going to do well. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, story-wise, is this story really going to be good enough to carry? And number three, what you were just talking about, the writing, I think a lot of people, when it comes to blockbusters, they just want to see explosions. And I, to a certain extent, I mean, I can just go back and Transformers is a perfect example to me.
You go on, sorry.
Okay, Transformers is a perfect example to me, where the last Transformers, we're in the fourth or fifth one, and the fact is that, I find Mark Wahlberg and everything else, but how many explosions were there? And there was zero story. Whereas if what you're talking about, the dramatic, okay, August through December, we're talking about really crisp, tight, good writing. The acting is there. And I think this is why you see a lot of these films being nominated for Academy Award.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with that, but when we're talking about, like, The Seven Samurai is one of my favorite films, in terms of, like, how well made the movie is and tells such a compelling story.
Right.
Whereas with The Magnificent Seven did a very great retelling of that. It's not as good, in my opinion, but it's a great retelling. So now we have a remake of a remake, and it's one of those things that's like the filter of the internet. Right. Does it pass through so many times that it just gets bogged down? And I have no doubt that the acting is going to be great. We have amazing actors on this cast. The only weak part I can see is going to be Chris Pratt, and a lot of people are going to hate me for that, saying that. But when you look at the powerhouse, he's literally the weakest in that. That's how strong this cast is. For such a great movie. The story is tried and true. It's 2 times well done, and they're both classics. Well remembered today. It's literally just that with the writing. And it's whether or not we can break out of this cycle of having writers that kind of call into the story themselves, kind of call back to the old stories. And it's this problem with my generation being the nostalgia generation. Mm-hmm. We throw so many of those references in there and try to do callbacks and haha, did you see? And even writers that are 3 times my age are starting to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's cute and fun every now and again, but when you're talking about a movie like The Magnificent Seven, when these are the habits that we're getting into with writing, it's something that scares me.
Yeah. Now,
and that's about it.
Let me ask you guys a question. How do we think this is going to do? This is a remake, true. How do we think this is? Because Westerns, historically, I can think of a few Westerns off the top of my head. They were popular back in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, you had 3:10 to Zuma, you had Unforgiven, you had all the... But how, The Hateful Eight just came out with Quentin Tarantino and his film. How do we think this is going to do? With a whole new generation now. Because a lot of people haven't really...
I mean, we've had Westerns, but we also had the modern Western in No Country for Old Men.
True.
That's a modern version of a Western.
I think Chris Pratt is going to bring in a new generation to start enjoying the Westerns. I think that's one of the reasons why they're bringing him in. And plus, he did the new Jurassic World, and I thought that he did a great performance at making a very serious character, also very compelling, and he was able to make you laugh and still.
Well, see, that's my main issue. That's my main issue, and
but there is a character on this one. He's the second.
This is I know that, but I'm saying he is playing a character that is not as serious as the rest of them. In terms of context, he is playing more of a comic relief. But genuinely, I believe that he's going to play it well.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a weak spot in the acting, I feel it's going to be from him, not from the rest of the cast. And I'm not saying he's going to be weak. Yeah. I'm not saying he is a weak actor. I'm not saying he hasn't done amazing as Star-Lord, as Andy in Parks and Rec, as I can't remember his character name in Jurassic World right now. But he has done amazing in these roles, and he is a great actor. but with the list that goes on right now, I feel that he could be the weakest anchor in this. And he's not, as you said, the main character. No. He is at the top of the billing list on IMDb simply because his name is out there more right now. So for those of you who check out the movie.
I think we can all three agree his star is on the rise.
Yes.
And the reason why I bring him up, though, is because you were asking his popularity or, like, what if this movie was going to do well. I think this movie is going to do well. And because it's going to be a storyline that we all are very familiar with a movie...
I don't think a lot of people are familiar with the story.
Yeah,
you don't think so? No, I think for people like us who are like more film buffy, I think it's more familiar to us. But I think the general audience doesn't know about Seven Samurai or the Magnificent Seven. I think people who are from that generation remember Magnificent Seven. So it came out in 1960. So anyone born 1958 to now is kind of going to know that movie a little bit more than our generation is. The younger generation, maybe even born up like 89 and later. Then the general audience is not going to know it.
Then I think it would be a great revitalization of the Western movies.
And depending on, in all honesty, because I think we can all three agree, Hollywood is fad-based.
Yes, very much so.
I think that if we have success with this movie, I think you're going to see a lot more Westerns and studios say, green light's going to come on and say,
I don't think we're going to see
not a lot more, but a few more to where they're going to put the money in and they're going to make it as good as they possibly can.
I hope so, because
you mean like cash in?
Yeah, well, not cash in, but more
put in as much as they can.
Exactly, is more effort.
More
effort, not financially, more effort.
We'll know that there's a cash flow to get out of it.
Exactly.
So, like, people who want to write Westerns and that type of genre, they're going to be able to jump in, start writing more for this genre, and get something out of it, rather than just having executive producers come out and say, no, it's a Western, we can't do it. Exactly. Audiences don't want to see it, just before it's even read, So okay. Remake for you.
Remake for me. Well, I touched upon it earlier, and I'm going to go with it now, and it's got to be Scarface. When I heard that they were remaking this, I was really disappointed.
Really into the mob movies right now.
And because these two movies, to me, are iconic and classic. And, I mean, Al Pacino, it was another one of his roles. But Brian De Palma did such a great job with this. And mind you, I realize this is a remake from the original back in the 20s and the 30s. I get that. However, we're only talking about 30-some-odd years.
The 20s version.
Yeah. No, I don't think anybody has. No. I think everybody's familiar with Say Hello to My Little Friend. Yeah. So the fact is that 20 or 30 years later, I think is really, really too soon. De Palma did such a great job with this movie. And, Michelle Pfeiffer was in it. And, you had a couple of decent stars. And so, and the other thing, too, how violent is this going to be? Not that violence, we don't mind violence in movies, and that's fine. But, there was an old saying I heard that Blink-183 got their names.
Blink-182.
Blink-182. I couldn't think of the name.
Yeah.
They got their that number by the number of times that was said, that certain word was said in the movie. And so, it's one of those that, I guess from what I understand, The Wolf of Wall Street blew that away by like 320. So, but nonetheless, Scarface to me was just one of those movies that's like, really, you're gonna go ahead and do that?
No, I think it's perfectly fine to do Scarface now. And
just like you were saying for what is it called? The other mob.
Godfather. Like I said, I think it's perfectly a fine time to do them, but we have to make sure that they're being handled with care. Like one of the main reasons I actually feel Scarface would be a better thing for a remake right now is because Scarface is more fun. Whereas The Godfather is this epic and it's so drawn out and it's such a different told movie. Scarface was an era where we're kind of pulling from right now. Like we're pulling from a lot of like the late 70s and early 80s of movies right now. We're trying to pull back from that a little bit more. And a lot of the movies we're making now are actually from those eras. Yeah. And so it's cool to kind of like Batman's coming back.
Yes.
Like when was Batman at its height in terms of movies was, in the 80s. Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of funny to see all these callbacks. So I think it's perfectly fine that Scarface is being remade compared to Godfather because it is more fun. We can have a little bit more of the themes and the usage that we do today in movies, a little bit more action because Scarface is way more actiony than Godfather ever was.
Absolutely.
We have as troubled as a character, and I think there's a lot of actors who can portray Tony Montana as like disturbed as he was in that time. And what I think is cool about Scarface, and they can almost do a reboot of it, like a reboot remake, is that it's all about the empire, the crime empire.
Right.
You know, and so it doesn't matter where the film takes place. You know, the last one taking place in Miami, I think the one before that was in a different location as well. So, like, it doesn't matter where the film takes place, so long as it has those key elements of it's about this disturbed character who runs a drug empire and watches as it all crumbles before him.
I think then you're on a good point. Like that does make sense, because right now with crime, with lots of
Well, I think we can
Lots
also
of
use it
drugs.
as a good example of the war on drugs. Like right now we have
it's happening exponentially.
Yeah, like we back in the 80s, we had all this idea, like Miami Vice was there,
Yes.
you know, Bad Boys later in the
Yes.
early 90s.
Yes.
So we had this idea that Miami was the kingpin of drugs, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
this is where all this stuff is coming
Yeah.
from. It's the party area. But like as things have been going, we had the Mexican drug cartels kind of come
Right.
out, you know, getting into a little bit more political background stuff. You know, we could probably see this in like Texas.
Yes.
And that is like we could have this. We could have a Hispanic Scarface.
Yeah.
You know, in like it doesn't have his name does not have to be Tony
And see,
Montana.
for the record,
This
we
is
don't
getting
know.
exciting.
We
Didn't
don't
think
know
about it.
any of the casting yet.
No
So-
casting has been mentioned.
Well,
No,
nothing. So
when
they're
did you
still
say it was
in
coming
the.
out?
I don't know.
it's later in the decade.
Right, yeah.
Like end of the decade, almost pushing to 2020.
Wow,
We
okay.
have zero. We're still in pre-development, so we're not even
It's not even pre-production yet.
exactly. And so they have zero idea about story, cast, locations. This was just somebody dropping it. This is water cooler stuff, and somebody said, "Oh, this sounds like a good idea." Somebody went to somebody else, and they greenlit it, and so that's as far as it's gone.
Well, they should-
So
they should hurry
that
up.
will definitely be a very fascinating thing to watch as we move along.
Yeah.
So
I'm very much like the second they announce it, I might take it.
So, okay, let me ask you guys a question then. Is there a time frame that, every 25 to 30 years that we can say that, like, reboots and remakes, that has a half-life, so to speak, or a shelf life that we think that something from, let's say, the 70s could actually be popular today?
The time frame that I give, and I'm only going to say this because of superhero movies right now, because
Mhm.
like right now, like as the 60s were the Western, we're right now in the superhero movie.
Right.
Whatever comes after that, I'm very excited to see.
Mhm.
But we just had a Spider-Man, like literally 2 years ago.
Yes.
And so
You
what
know,
are they doing?
2014,
Yes.
and
Bring
now
them
we're gonna
back
have a
again.
new Spider-Man next year, brand new actor, brand new series, and so like that feels a little too soon to me. But the reboot when we first started Amazing Spider-Man didn't feel too soon, and that was about like 5 to 6 years. So like I think if you wait like 5 years for a reboot, it actually feels fine to me, you know. And I think that there's some exceptions like The Godfather. You know, there's those like I don't think we could ever redo Citizen Kane.
No. I mean,
Like there's just some
No.
movies and like some eras that you can't touch.
no. I mean,
You know, but there's like I could see Gone with the Wind coming back.
yes.
As weird as that sounds to me, because I don't think it'll ever be as good as the original, and I don't think it'll ever do as good as the original.
They say that a lot about good movies.
Yeah, but like it's a movie that I could definitely be seeing done well enough that I'd go and watch it, and that would fit in today's modern era with our movies and would not feel out of place.
Okay, so question. Now, since we're talking about redoing characters, we had the The Dark Knight Rises come out like 5 years ago. Do you think it's almost too soon for? I mean, I understand DC's trying to get in the game and everything else, but do you think it's almost too soon for another Batman movie?
Well, I guess are you talking about the new one?
The
Batman
new one
versus
coming out at
Superman?
the end of March.
Yeah. So I think
Beginning of March, right, or middle of March?
No, March 25th, I think.
Oh, okay.
But nonetheless.
Well, I mean, whenever it comes to Batman versus Superman, DC's trying to start their own franchise.
Right.
So with this one, I mean, what we were talking about last week, I think it was monumental that they bring out something so big, and then they lead it off with the Suicide Squad because that's coming next, right?
That's going to be out in early August.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I just think that, I think there is sort of a...
There's a reason for it. I think.
Yeah,
that
no,
there's a
you're
reason
absolutely
behind
right.
the
And they're
movie.
trying... And that is the one danger of that movie, Dawn of Justice, as we're getting new images and new videos every week, is that I think that this movie could be too big. And I say that with quotations because you're possibly having 5 and 6 characters And now that
they've already said that by the end of the movie, we're going to have a fully realized Justice League minus one character because we're not going to. From the poster, it doesn't look like we're having Green Lantern in this film.
Yeah, so he's going to actually, from what I understand,
they haven't even cast him yet. So.
Right, from what I understand, they're going to have a whole standalone film with him and then bring him in.
Well, it's actually it has been announced that it's going to be Green Lantern Corps.
Okay.
So the current kind of rumor going around right now, it's more or less been like this is what's going to be happening, which is that we're going to get 2 Green Lanterns. We're going to get Hal Jordan and John Stewart. Everyone from before the 80s knows Hal Jordan as the original Green Lantern.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say the original Green Lantern. He's the second Green Lantern. But the original with the ring.
Right.
And then we're going to get John Stewart, who is the one that everyone from the 90s knows as the Black Green Lantern, as the one we all know from the Justice League. And he's the one I'd like to see sit on the Justice League after the terribleness that was Ryan Reynolds movie.
Oh, we won't even...
Which movie doesn't exist.
And hopefully he can redeem himself in a few weeks with Deadpool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think... And we touched upon this last week. We'll get into it now, actually. I think Deadpool is going to be one of those fun movies, even if it's rated R, that is just, the commercials look fun, the trailers look amazing, and it's just like, we all know that it's going to be, that is going to be the movie, the first rated R movie from Marvel.
Well, it's the first comic book movie about and it's kind of funny because it's as we're talking about reboots and all this stuff, it's a reboot of a character. Like we already saw Deadpool, and we saw Ryan Reynolds play Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then as they said, they showed his effing mouth shut. Yeah, they say it in the trailer. Yeah. In the first very trailer that Deadpool did. So it's a reboot of a character in a film franchise that has been screamed for decades. Everyone has wanted, or I shouldn't say decades, for the last decade, it's been screamed for to have a movie because the marketing right now, if the movie is half as good as the marketing has been for this movie, it'll still be a great fun film. Yes. And if it's as good, it's going to be a hard thing to top this year. Just looking at what we have for comic book movies, we have Deadpool, we have Dawn of Justice coming out right after that. Then we get
Suicide Squad.
No. We have Captain America: Civil War. Oh, then we have the X-Men Apocalypse. Then we have Suicide Squad. Then Doctor Strange. Yeah. And then if you want to kind of throw Star Wars into there at the end of the year with Star Wars Anthologies Rogue One. So we have this giant packed year of all these sequels and comic franchises. That it's starting all with Deadpool. Yeah. And it's going to get big, and it depends, because throughout the rest of the year, they're going to call back and say, well, it wasn't as good as Deadpool, or this is better than Deadpool, depending on how good this film is.
Maybe Deadpool is actually there to just start it off, not comic relief, but...
It's there to set the bar. If you are better than this movie, you have made it in 2016. If you are not better than this movie, you will not be remembered.
Well, I think in the big thing...
You'll be the Avatar of this year.
Yeah. Well, look at Avatar though.
Avatar is the most well-made or most well-received movie in terms of monetary value. Who can quote that movie? Name any nerd who can quote that movie to me right now. Yeah. They'll just say blue people with blue people Pocahontas.
Exactly. That's what But in all seriousness, I think that Deadpool is going to be huge. Yes, we can both agree that. But Marvel has the street cred. I mean, we are now going on almost. Probably 7 years.
2008 was when I think years, Iron Man.
And now, it's like, okay, so if this movie doesn't do as well, hypothetically speaking,
let's just say we're now going to start talking about the sequels.
Okay, so this is actually Skylar's right. This is a good segue into sequels. If this movie doesn't do as well, which I find is very difficult to believe because single movie after Iron Man has done well. And I think Iron Man was
It's the best the Marvel has produced in terms of
absolutely. Film. Well, I mean, would you even say that better than the Avengers?
It's better than all of them. And the reason why is because Avengers, as good as it was more fun than just a good film. What makes Iron Man the best Marvel film, and it's the highest rated as well on Metacritic. I think it's an 80. It's high 80s comparatively to everything else. What makes it so good was that it wasn't about the Iron Man suit. It was about
about the man behind him.
Yeah, it was about Stark. It was about Tony Stark and all of the turmoil that goes into him. And That's why I also like Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
You know, the Iron Man films have always been the best of Marvel right now. And because Tony Stark is such a cool character. And we had Ant-Man, and Ant-Man was really good with character development.
It was really good. I like Paul Rudd, and you know, it did do its
but like
part.
Scott Lang isn't as interesting as a character as Tony Stark.
No.
And I think the first film that we're going to be seeing out of Marvel to really do a character that's as interesting as Tony Stark is going to be Stephen Strange later this year.
Yes.
You know, Stephen Strange is such a compelling character. He was this great surgeon. For anyone who doesn't know Doctor Strange, he was a fantastic surgeon that was so good that he actually became apathetic about everything. So he kind of has this like, I hate everything around me, and then damages himself because he with his hands. His hands can no longer perform the surgeries that he used to be able to. And so we have Benedict Cumberbatch playing that, which I think is like, he's an amazing actor. Everything he's ever done or has ever touched has turned to solid gold.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the last thing that I can think of off the top of my head is Into Darkness.
Into Darkness, he was the best part of that movie.
I mean, we could go into this all day long. We won't, but it's just one of those things. I've probably seen the film, honestly, about 25 times.
Into
and
Darkness?
I love just the scene, you know, with Chris Pine, and he's a decent actor, and you just see him, and they're just...
There's no contest to who's running that scene.
But see, I will say one thing about that set of movies is J.J. Abrams used light so well that, you know, the white background and just how he used light and just... But he just made...
Minus the lens flares.
Exactly. And he made everything so great. And it was rumored. They said, oh, who's going to play Khan? Who's going to play Khan? And that was a big thing because if they didn't get the right person...
I found it funny that they were just like, his name's not Khan. It's like, we're not actually doing Khan. His name's like Jonathan
when
Wilson.
He comes out with that, it's like...
it's like, no, my name is Khan. I'm just like I'm a Star Trek. Like, Wrath of Khan is the best Star Trek movie of all time.
Yeah.
Sorry, Into Darkness, but you'll never top the original Khan.
No.
You know? And so, like... as good as that was, Benedict Cumberbatch does play the role very, very well.
Yes.
And I do like it.
I don't think they took that character anywhere.
Huh?
They didn't really take the character anywhere.
But Khan dies in the original as well. Like, it's the exact... Khan is more there to be... He's supposed to be this super... Like, even in the movie, he's supposed to be this superb human, the pinnacle of what humanity can attain. And that's what Khan was in the originals. And he was... What I think they failed to capture, and I don't think that was Benedict Cumberbatch, I very much think that was the writing, was that they failed to capture the cleverness that was Khan, that cynical, or that sinister cleverness that Khan was so able to pull off in the originals, and still want you loving the character.
Yeah.
You know, like, in the original Wrath of Khan, you loved Khan. He was such a cool character that no matter what he did, you know, killing Spock in the way that he did. If for anyone who saw Into Darkness but not Wrath of Khan, it's the exact opposite. So Spock dies instead of Kirk in the original. And the way that he did it and the emotional gravitas of that scene was handled to such an amazing degree that that's why Khan is remembered as such the iconic Star Trek villain. You know? But like getting back...
Doctor Strange...
Getting to what I'm talking about, Doctor Strange...
is going to be very great.
And the reason why I mention it is because with all the sequels coming out, and you can almost say that every Marvel movie coming out is going to be a sequel now.
Yes.
Even though it's a standalone, it exists in this universe, calls back to everything, that has to be considered a sequel. And I think Doctor Strange is going to be the strongest we get out of that, due to the mysticism, due to its own lore, due to the character that is Stephen Strange. We got Tilda Swinton playing the Ancient One. And Tilda Swinton can play man or woman. It doesn't matter. She can do it all. And so, like, even if the Ancient One is a guy, doesn't matter. Tilda Swinton's got it.
Yeah.
You know, on top of having Benedict Cumberbatch as the titular character, it is the film that I think is going to be the one to beat this year out of comic books.
Yes.
And before that, I think it's Deadpool. I think in that order, it's going to go Deadpool. It's going to go Stephen Strange, Deadpool, Civil War, Suicide Squad, and then Apocalypse, then Dawn of Justice.
Yeah.
I think Dawn of Justice, it does not have enough going for it.
Yeah, no. And so let me ask you a question. What do you think, I mean, and if you're a Marvel film buff, you know this, at the end of every single film after the credits, or partially way through the credits, they have an Easter egg. So let me ask you, Skylar, what exactly do you think is going to be this Easter egg, or what we're going to see, this scene that we're going to see here? to tease the next, because we already know what's coming
movie.
out.
Yeah, no, I know. And so, God, I mean, with Stephen Strange, he's all about like he becomes the Sorcerer Supreme, which is all about magic. Like it's literally magic. And minus Thor, we haven't really had magic in the Marvel universe yet. This is kind of like the first instance of it. And we're about to get more of it once we get the Iron Fist TV show. There's going to be more of that. We kind of got a little bit with it with Deadpool, with Stick coming in, a member of the Chaste, which are a magic organization. So, like, the magic's kind of starting.
Right.
You know? And so maybe we might start getting a little bit more of the magic side. We might see something that alludes to Black Panther that comes out in 2017. Maybe something that deals with the Infinity Stones, pushing into Guardians of the Galaxy 2. What I'd honestly like to see is actually call to none of the movies. So we're getting Deadpool Season 2 this year. Daredevil Season 2 this year. And with Daredevil, what I'm like I said, Stick is a character that is part of the Chaste, and they're this organization that is all about like this mysticism, keeping the world safe. And they're very similar to the organization that Stephen Strange finds himself associated to with the Ancient One. And a lot of comic bookies right now. And so, like, I really hope they kind of try to meld the TV and the movie universes. You know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has done a cool job of that. Whenever there's a new movie comes out, they kind of blend it together at the time.
Right.
But I'd like to see a little bit more of that, you know, with Daredevil. You know, throwing to Daredevil, which right now is the best show on out of Marvel, you know, and push more towards that and call the people to that. So if you're just watching the movies, you can go watch Deadpool. Or if you're watching Deadpool, you have a reason to go see Stephen Strange.
So you want everything. So you want the MCU to eventually, you don't want a TV and a film. You want it all to be able to meld into one.
Well, it is. Like, it already is. But, like, I'd rather, like, because it's all connected. Like,
right.
You know, Samuel Jackson was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's in the 3 episodes. So, like, he exists in the universe. It all ties together. What I'd like to see is a little bit more on screen time, a little bit more back and forth banter between the two. You know, and that's my main issue with DC right now. And I'm, like, as much as a Marvel film buff I am, I'm a DC comic, like Flash is my favorite superhero.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that they're not combining the TV and the movie universes, they're keeping them completely separate for DC, angers me to no end, because you already have this established universe with Flash and Arrow,
right? And
they're not utilizing it.
So why not just plug them in or transplant them in? So what are your thoughts?
Well, definitely not as extensive as that.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to throw you in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I understand that the universe, they haven't really kind of put them together yet, but DC is just coming out with movies right now. So I mean, in my eyes, I kind of see that, the film is not really going to start doing anything until the later movies start to come out.
I think that's DC's problem. I think that DC is so behind. I said this to him last week. I think DC is so behind the 8 ball that what they're trying to do is they're trying to put too many characters into one movie. And yes, we're going to get a Justice League Part 1 in 17 and a Justice League Part 2 in 19.
Is it in 17?
Yes.
Oh my God, I thought it was in 18, and then we got Justice League Part 2 in 20.
Okay, so maybe that's it. It's one of those 2 years.
Yeah,
I know
it's sooner, but I'd rather have it later.
The fact is that you're trying to cram all this in, all these good superheroes in, and now that, you know, we have kind of, we know who the villain is going to be in Dawn of Justice, and they're kind of teasing who the villain is going to be later on.
Either being Darkseid or Doomsday.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And so
I think the main issue that I have, and I'd be fine with having 3 characters. I'm very much fine with having Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. Mm-hmm. And because we don't need an origin right now for Superman. Right. We don't need an origin for Batman. We all know Batman's origin if you don't pick up a comic book in the last 5 years. Yeah. In the last 80 years, for that matter. Yeah. You know? Like, we don't need origin stories for these.
No, not anymore. I think that's done.
So, like, in terms of, like, if we're going to have an origin story in this movie, well, guess what? We're getting an origin story for Wonder Woman. But now we have Cyborg, we have Flash, and we have Aquaman. No one knows their backstories. I do, because I read their comic books. Yeah. But no one knows Barry Allen's. Or actually, I think they're doing Wally West. I think they're doing Wally West. I could be wrong, though. But, like, no one knows his backstory. Yeah. No one at all. You know, no one knows Cyborgs. Like, I barely remember it. He is such an off character that it's hard to remember his backstory. And Aquaman, people make him the butt of every joke. And by the way, y'all listen to this and you don't like Aquaman, you're all wrong. Aquaman's amazing. He's the best character ever.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they're actually putting him in and going to show the badass side of him. But
they should have made a movie about Aquaman a long time ago.
They're going to be doing one. There is an Aquaman movie, and I think it's actually next year that they're doing it.
When they made their that Entourage HBO special or that show, they made like a reference to Aquaman in one of the movies that he was making.
Yeah,
main character Vince. They should have definitely brought in the DC world at that point.
To correct you, they are making a film, and it's going to be July of 2018. It's going to be released.
Is Justice League 1?
Oh no! This is Aquaman.
Oh God,
2018.
So
that is way too late.
Yeah. So we're going to see. We got Wonder Woman coming out in 17. We've got Aquaman coming out in 18. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they.
Maybe they're doing this because they really do have to force.
Because Batman comes out next year, right?
Which one?
Does Batman come out next year?
Batman, Superman?
No. Like literally Batman. There's a standalone Batman film that's being produced that's being made right now.
Oh, I heard. You're right, Skylar. I did hear Ben Affleck said he was inspired, that he wanted to actually come out and do. Well,
something. there was always plans to be one, but I think they once what was it? They backed off one movie. The studio backed off one movie and started backing Batman instead. They're backing off of Superman a little bit and they're pushing more towards Batman.
Okay.
Because they liked Ben Affleck a little bit more as the character. They felt that he did such a good job. And I can see him doing a good job.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a movie that it's a sequel to Man of Steel that I don't think we needed at the time. I think that as good as the movie could have been, that the end part of the movie is going to ruin whatever happens beforehand. Yeah. And I think the first 3/4 of the movie is actually going to be good. I think that everything dealing with Batman versus Superman is actually going to be interesting. Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill are amazing. Everything that I've heard from people who have seen the movie say that Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor Jr. has been incredible and actually steals the show.
And this is funny because I wrote a couple pieces and I'm, from what my opinion is, from when we see him, in the whole party scene with Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, and I get, and then it seems to me he's very
strange.
It's strange, but very. I don't see how the character arc's going to go with him. Yes, he's supposed to be this devious and psychotic guy, and we see him in a couple of the trailers, and you know what I'm talking about. But the fact is, there's one scene, one frame of one trailer where you see his head completely shaved. And I think that's going to be the oh my God moment. Yeah. And I think that's when you're finally, he snaps and he says, okay, now the transformation's complete. Mm-hmm. I am now Lex Luthor.
So I'm gonna throw this back to our topic a little bit more and say that we know that these sequels are coming now. And what's really cool about sequels, and I think a lot better than remakes and reboots, is that we're excited for them. We're very much excited to see what these things have to offer to us.
Correct.
And what we can expect from them. And all the discussion we just gave is really good to have, for this, because it gets them free advertising.
Right. Absolutely.
And it gets them the fan base excited for it every time someone talks about it. But when we look at some other films, so outside of the comic books right now, or outside of Star Trek and Star Wars, out of the big franchises, we have to also look at the film franchises that are doing sequels. So would you say, and I'm going to throw this both to you guys, let's look at my favorite movie of 2015, Deus Ex.
Okay.
Or Ex Machina. Sorry, Ex Machina.
Good movie.
Yeah, an incredibly good movie. Should have Oscar nods. Doesn't. Hate everyone. Whatever.
It's one of those movies that if you haven't seen it, it's got one of those twists, and I'm guilty of I haven't seen it quite yet. But the fact is, it has one of those twists.
It's just so well written and has such a good throughput storyline that every time the story twists and turns,
you can follow it.
You can follow it, and it just grips you, like
Yeah,
it just
and you can
drags
relate.
into
You
your
can
back
relate.
and pulls you with it. And it was beautifully made, really low, like amazingly low budget film compared for what it did, and has some of the best acting, best writing. It was my best film of last year. But that being said, it being as good as it was, and with it being such a unique concept, Hollywood tends to like to make sequels of stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, with these types of movies, would you see, like, do you believe sequels are appropriate, or do you believe that sequels are killing creativity to a degree of original content?
I think that's why. I think it's movies like that make us believe that sequels and reboots and all these remakes are probably making the genres or that type of movie overplayed. Because that Ex Machina movie, I could see where that story could go, but I don't see that story really developing to the degree that we kind of follow it. So it's going to be a different story completely, but revolving around a new main character. So for that story to go anywhere, it's going to be a totally different story.
I think there's two sides of the coin here. On what you were talking about, as far as there are films out there that deserve sequels, okay, and everybody wants to see a sequel, and they're never made. And then I think there are sequels that are made that are just, for lack of a better word, horrible. Okay, I mean,
Transformers 2.
Yeah, I mean, we could list them all day long, and
you can
Joel blue in the face. Okay, but the fact is that these sequels that are being made that are horrible are the majority of what's coming out. Personally, and I don't know, I love the reboot of the A-Team. Okay,
this I liked it too. I very much liked it.
What I thought was so good about it was the casting. I thought Liam Neeson was great.
Very, very
was Bradley Cooper. You had Rampage Jackson, and you had others, and it was just. I thought it was funny. I thought it was dramatic, but I also thought it could have carried. And the way that movie ended, it could have very, very easily had a sequel, and it broke even. Okay, or it made like $20 million.
I think it made a little bit more, yeah.
But would have loved to have seen a sequel. It'll never get made.
Yeah.
And so
it has to have an audience. It
has exactly.
I'm gonna mention two things off that. So one, there's a big thing with sequels right now. Even when they're well received, which the A-Team was very well received.
Yes.
It wasn't like the critical success of all time. I think it had a Metacritic score of like in the mid 70s.
Absolutely.
But it was positive review and made a little bit more. And you see this more with video games, and like I'm an expert on that, like way more than I am with movies. And there's a great series called Darksiders, and Darksiders was a pretty well received game when it came out.
I remember this game. I remember playing this game, and
it was a very well received. It was a pretty well received game. Had very low sales numbers, but with all of the after stuff, so beyond its market, all its secondary life that it got from word of mouth and the years that it came out, we got a Darksiders 2 eventually. We got a very good sequel. I mean, we would have had a Darksiders 3 if it not for the studio collapsing,
Right.
And I think Hollywood can kind of follow that. And with these movies that have just enough to go over, but you kind of let them simmer a bit. You wait a couple of years. You wait about 5 or 6 years. You sit on the sequel, and then you hit them with it, because then you get that buildup that you have all these people who are so excited for the sequel.
Clamoring for this.
And then you hit them, and then you're going to make even more money.
Yes.
And so long as you do it right, you're going to get a good sequel out of it.
Yeah. Depending on the director. But
director and writing, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I think the two things of what you're talking about with that is, number one, I think personally, when it comes to video games and especially movies, you have a shelf life, or you have a window.
Exactly, that's what I was going to bring up.
And you have that window of maybe 4 or 5 years.
And if you
it doesn't really matter what the film is.
Your audience can die.
If you're going to come out with, it doesn't matter whether it's a superhero movie or a dramatic movie. If you can come out with that, and actually, what inspired me to do this subject this week was Jerry Bruckheimer had just spoken to, or had a meeting with, Tom Cruise about a Top Gun 2. And the reason I bring this up is because we're almost 35 years after.
How can you do a sequel?
Okay, how can you do a sequel?
Well, at the same time, like, Look at
I mean,
Independence Day 2.
Right. But at the same time, though, in
It's not really-
1996,
I feel like
that
that was
was
a reboot, isn't it?
No, it's a sequel. It's a direct sequel. The technology that they'd gotten from the spaceship the first time, they're now using to defend their world. The same scientist, the president's still there. Like all these characters still exist, and it is a direct sequel. You could almost say it's a reboot because they're trying to push new life into it, but it is definitely sequel first rather than anything else.
But
okay.
that being said, and you're right. That being said, you have that shelf life, and especially with video games nowadays, I find that they're being more made almost like movies to the extent of you have a good story,
Right?
Okay. But see, in all honesty,
Depending on the game,
But in all honesty, movie writers are now starting to when they need work, they're starting to go right for video games.
Yeah,
because
but they're
they
bringing
have
those video games
Okay.
now to the screen.
So here's where I disagree with you on that, and this is the reason why. And I actually have to thank video games for this to an extent. So I'm going to look at a game of the year. I believe it was 2010 or 2009, which was The Witcher 2.
Okay.
All right. Came out almost 5 or 6 years ago now. An amazingly written game, an amazingly made game. Everything about it was perfect. All right. Now look 5 or 6 years later, well past that 2 to 3 year span when you normally want to do a sequel in both games and movies.
Right.
It's very much near the end. We're getting a sequel.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. If you look at, say, Battlefront,
right.
The last one came out in the PS2 era, which ended in 2006.
Yeah.
But we just got a brand new Battlefront, very well received monetarily. There's a lot of fan criticism from it, and I'm one of those people who criticize it. But it made a lot of money because of the nostalgia.
Well, now let me ask you a question.
One second.
Okay,
I think the nostalgia generation that we have been doing is very good for one thing. We can elongate series now. Mm-hmm. The time between one to the next can be a lot longer. The time between Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World is a lot longer, and Jurassic World is the second highest grossing film of all time.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that the Star Wars Battlefront made a lot of money monetarily because we had Force Awakens? Do you think, as we got closer...
Yes and no, but as big as The Force Awakens was, I think Battlefront only made 10% more because of it.
Okay.
Battlefront was such a unanimously loved game throughout the gaming community that it didn't matter when it came out. It could have come out in 5 years from now, and it would have been just as well received because of people like me and the generation that played Battlefront 2 who knew how great of a game that was and remember all of those moments are so willing to go see it. Look at The Force Awakens. If we're going to talk about sequels in terms of that, 2004 was when Revenge of the Sith came out.
Yes.
Nearly 9 years later.
Yeah.
And is now the third highest grossing film of all time.
Yeah.
And so it has nothing to do with the longevity. It has nothing to do with time span. With the way that we've been consuming media now, I would agree with you. This was like the 80s.
Right.
The 80s and 90s, we could not get away with this.
No, absolutely
But because
not.
of the way video games have been perpetuated, the way media has been perpetuated, with all the nostalgia that we've been infecting with our world, it's a lot easier to get away with making sequels and reboots the way we are doing now because of the fact that we remember and love all of these series because we came from such a generation of heightened creativity.
Yeah.
So looking to the future, and my second point that I was going to make was that of all the sequels that I'm actually excited for this year, I'm actually excited for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
It's all Megan Fox, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. That's
minus Megan Fox. I don't care about her.
No, I know. We're just kidding. We're kidding.
I love Will Arnett. I love Stephen Amell. The Turtles are as fun as I remember them from the original movies. They're as fun as I remember them from the comic books and the TV shows, the video games, all of it. They're as fun as I remember. And the fact that they're adding in Rocksteady and Bebop.
Yeah. That's huge.
They're adding in characters that, if you knew the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo. You know all of them. You know Shredder. You know Splinter. Those are who you know. You don't know Bebop and Rocksteady.
Yes.
You don't know these guys. You know April. You kind of know Casey Jones.
Yeah.
The
hockey mask and the
And
the hockey stick.
What really set it apart, and like why I think that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is better for this genre than Transformers was, because Transformers was kind of anime-ish, where we had a lot of exposition over the action. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was literally made to have fun.
Yes,
the comic book, the TV show, all of it was made just to have fun. And just from the trailer alone, and I didn't see the original film, and I'm actually going to go back and watch it now, see if it was good. But like the trailer showed it to be as fun as I remember the series growing up.
Yes, and I do remember the series in 1989, and then you had Secret of the Ooze and all these.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
go Ninja, go like Ice Baby, like even Ice.
But okay, honestly, speaking of the 80s, and here's a movie that I think we would both agree that was horrible when it first came out, but it's one of those cult film ones. 1987, Masters of the Universe.
And we have confirmation that they're thinking about doing a remake of that.
They have greenlit.
They've confirmed it.
They have greenlit Masters of the Universe. And that is He-Man.
That is
Skeletor.
She-Ra.
That is She-Ra. That is Man-at-Arms. Everybody.
Cashew, He-Man. Cashew.
Orko for those. But, I mean, so this is something that, now you want to talk about fun. This is going to be, and I actually was on Instagram
weirdly enough, I actually think that was less fun because, like, I watch He-Man. Like, I love He-Man, Thundercats, all of that.
I'm still an
Thundercats,
80s geek.
Thundercats, I mean, but like all of that fun stuff, I think He-Man had more exposition, but it was more about teaching a lesson. He-Man and She-Ra, Masters of the Universe.
Because at the end of the day, okay, it's all about today with South Park and Stan says, "Oh, this is what we've learned." Well, this is going back to 1986. This is what even the series in the animated series. Don't do drugs, or don't lie to your parents, or don't do this. And I think that you're right. It was more of learning a lesson and being a good person and doing all these things. So it's going to be very interesting to see, especially with the CGI now. I mean, if you really want to laugh, go back and try and watch Masters of the Universe. That was Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella. And it's Skeletor, and you'll see the makeup, and it was hilarious.
It's hilarious.
But
it was bad.
It was so bad. It was
almost
good.
as bad as the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yes.
But nothing will be that bad.
Which was actually entertaining.
But Bob Hoskins, God rest his soul, he's given us really good stuff. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I mean,
But that movie is his lowest point. Everyone knows it.
Yeah. All right.
So I'm just gonna say this for the last stuff. So as we move off from this, generally speaking, we can all kind of agree today that like there is good stuff and bad stuff that comes out of remakes and reboots and sequels, and that they get us excited and they get us hyped up. And for the most part, the reason why Hollywood's doing them is because it gets us talking.
Yes.
More than any of the movies that like. Before The Revenant came out, no one talked about it. Before Concussion came out, no one talked about it. Straight Outta Compton was maybe one of the few films that people talked about, but because it was based on a true life story. So there's very few films nowadays that gets people talking in the way that sells tickets, like the way sequels, reboots, and remakes do. So I'm just going to say number one reboot, remake, or sequel that you're looking forward to. Go, David.
Oh, number one.
Everything.
Reboot. Reboot? Well,
or name top two. Top two.
Well, we did this last week. I think the three that I'm really looking forward to was X-Men and, definitely Civil War. Okay. And we're going to be, all March, don't worry about this. We'll be talking about this. I'm dying with all of the hype and everything else. I will be there at midnight for Batman v Superman. I think that is the one movie.
Mine too.
I think that is the one movie, and I've said this to you off air and you. I think this is going to be the Star Wars of 2016. I think that this movie is going to blow up so much, and
so there is a reason for it.
Yes,
because it's going to be so big.
Because it is going to be so big, and I think that Warner Brothers and DC, they finally said we have to do something to catch Marvel, and this is it. And this has been anticipated now for over 2.5 years, and it's finally coming to fruition. And we've seen trailers, we've seen pictures,
I'm excited for
videos, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Aaron, what about you?
Well, I agree with you on that movie. I really want to see that sequel. Or it's
a sequel to Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that movie. I think that it would be really incredible to finally see who wins in the battle. I really hope that I don't want to expect that.
I like Batman more, but
Superwoman.
Superman's every time.
I don't think that
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Wonder Woman is going to actually go in and then just stop the fight. I think that they're going to finish the fight, and I hope that we figure out who is actually going to win now.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. But then there's also the Glorious Seven, and that was
Or the Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven. I'm sorry.
Yes.
But yeah, that's the movie that I was thinking about for the last couple weeks, and it's looking like it's going to be really interesting. After talking about it, it's only making me more
Yeah,
excited.
I think once we see, as Skylar had said, I think once we see our first trailer to really get an idea of how things are going to be. I mean, we all know they're going to stick to the original story, but how it's going to be and the action part of it, because let's face it, the last major Western that busted, well, The Lone Ranger, well, we won't get into that, but exactly. So, coming off of that a few years ago, but in all honesty, this remake is going to do really, really well.
Yeah, see where it takes us.
So, exactly.
Do you have a third one, or are you just going to go with those two?
I'm going to go with those two.
Okay.
All right. So for me, my reboot that I'm really looking forward to is Power Rangers, actually. So like Power Rangers, we finally got a cast. They all look good. They're not just high name actors. They're new people, which kind of always made Power Rangers kind of cool in my opinion, because they got people who weren't known. And after we got that gritty, what they called it a bootleg. I call it a fan dub.
It was incredible.
It was incredible. It was a gritty remake, and I'm kind of hoping for something more along the lines of that. It's good action. Can't wait to see the corny and cheesy monsters and all that stuff that I loved from Power Rangers growing up. So, and we don't really have that type of I forget the Japanese name for it, but that type of series.
Anime?
No.
Okay.
Like we have Kamen Rider.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's actually a type of genre that Power Rangers fits in, where it's like mass people.
Let me ask you a quick question about that. Now, are there going to be any cameos? Do we know?
I don't know if Jason Todd Frank is going to be in there. If anyone's going to make a cameo, it's Jason Todd Frank, who played the Green and White Ranger in the original series. He's been in Power Rangers for freaking ever. It's where he made his money. It's where he's made his name.
Maybe we might see a cameo. That would be.
I mean, we might see some cameos. Like, I don't care either way.
No, neither do I. It was just
sorry.
Not to cut you off. I think it's always nice to see when you're doing a callback, so to speak. I think it's always nice to have the original. I mean, I can remember a scene in the A-Team when one of the guys is coming out of the tanning booth, and you see Dirk Benedict standing there.
Yeah.
It's just more of to pay homage to him. So I think
one of those like he's just there.
Exactly. So what else do you look forward to? The
other thing, and I really hope it gets once again greenlit, but the sequel that I'm most looking forward to is Pacific Rim 2. We already So like Pacific Rim 2, if for anyone who doesn't know about its development cycle right now, it's kind of it's been going up and down in greenlighting to postpone to permanently delayed. Like has had been through the ringer and back with all of it. It is not canceled, is the official word about the movie.
Okay.
So
that's good to hear.
So that's good for me to hear. But like, I need a good kaiju movie. Like Pacific Rim 2 was like as good as Godzilla was. Pacific Rim was my freaking kaiju movie, man. Like that was my thing. And so like I want that again. I want that awesome action. Like everything about that movie was just perfect for that genre for me. Godzilla 2, I'm gonna be excited for. I'm gonna watch it. I love kaiju. Yep. But please, Guillermo del Toro, please make it. And if you don't, pull your money and do BioShock. So that's all I got. So
wrap it up.
Yeah, I was about to be like, we're getting a little long now.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up. So next week, I'm probably just going because I'm going on vacation, but I am going to put something out. I'm going to Vegas. Yes, I know you're probably all jealous. So I will put out like a little 10 or 15 minute thing. A lot shorter than this, but next week's going to be about gambling and gambling movies. And so we will see you then. So just thought, okay. So goodbye.
Bye, guys. I'm actually also going to be buying.
All right, goodbye.
So see you later.
See you next time.
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 So see you later.
next time.
So see you later.
next time.
So see you later.
next time.
So see you later.